Gather around. It's time for creation class. If you can't see the screen, I'll read what's on there. You just trust me, okay? All right. Welcome to the Revival Baptist Church creation class, where we learn about God's creation and glorify Him because of the wonders that we see. The memory verse that you'll be telling me or any of my people will be Hebrews 1:10. The verse for next month, Mark 10:6. But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. And I think some of you guys already got a good head start on that one. And we're going to start lesson 22. If you get any of the memory verses right, you get to take a prize out of the prize box. It's got a lot of cool stuff. All right, so today is the creation. We're going to look at the 6 days of the literal creation. I think it'll be exciting. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, I like how God does things in order. So He put the first day first. Makes sense to me. All right, Genesis 1:3. It says, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day." If anybody remembers last time, which was 2 months ago, we talked about one of the first things God did was to divide, and how division is a good thing when it's in the right context. But this time we're going to focus on something a little bit different. 1 John 1:5, the Bible says, "This then is the message which we have heard of Him, and declare unto you, that God is light, and in Him is no darkness at all." Revelation 21:23, "And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof." So in the beginning, there was darkness, but God Himself is light. So it just seems like God brought that spiritual light into the physical world and made it so that light would appear. Now here's a good lesson. 2 Corinthians 4:6 says, "For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ." That's a good thing to think about. You know, before we're saved, we're children of the darkness, children of this world. But once we get saved, that light shines that the devil's trying to hide from us. And when that light shines, we receive that gospel, we get saved, and our lives are destined for heaven. All right? The second day. Genesis 1:6, "And God said, 'Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters.' And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day." And if you notice, every time another day is mentioned, it says the evening and the morning. So 12 hours from evening till morning, and then the morning is 12 hours to the next evening. So that gives us that 24-hour clock that we understand today. Now the third day. Genesis 1:9, "And God said, 'Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear.' And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called He seas. And God saw that it was good." So God made the dry land to appear and gathered the seas together into one place. Genesis 1:11 says, "And God said, 'Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself, and upon the earth.' And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day." So the third day seems a little bit more busy. We've got God, basically making the dry land appear, separating the water out, and then causing all the plants and things to start growing. But here's one thing I want to think about here. It says in Genesis 1:9, "And God said, 'Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place.'" So God kind of pushed all the waters into one place, and the whole rest of the earth was basically land. So here's my theory about this. So here on the globe, we see that there's the North Pole roughly right here. And if you notice, right here in the middle is no land. Now you say there's no land anywhere else, where there's blue, and that is true, but here's the interesting thing about that. In Job 26:7, God gives us a little bit of details. It says, He stretched out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. So the north is stretched out over the empty place. So I believe that that's probably where the first sea was, where God gathered all the waters together into one place. And the Bible even calls it the empty place. So to me, it seems like a good spot for God to call the empty place, because there's nothing there. There's no land there. And you say, well, there's no land in any of the blue, so how do we know that this was the empty place? Well, of course, you don't know that for sure, but here's what my thought is. If you were to zoom in on there, you'll see that there's a fault line that runs to the side of the North Pole, and then it goes out and extends all the way around the whole globe. All the oceans around the world basically have this big seam where the earth broke open, and I believe that, the fountains of the great deep broke open, and all the land that was around the whole entire earth fell in and caused the oceans. And the reason that this doesn't have any of those attributes is because this was initially the sea. Now, another idea that lets me know that might be true is Isaiah 45:18 says, For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it, he hath established it. He created it not in vain, he formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else. So God created the earth to be inhabited. So I believe that, if he's going to make an earth, he's going to make one place the sea, and the rest is going to be dry land to be inhabited. It would make sense that this would be the place where he calls the empty place. I feel like there's probably nothing there but ocean, and probably some good fishing. The fourth day. Genesis 1:14 says, And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Now, those where it talked about signs that are in the heaven, God gave us the sun, moon, and stars as signs in the heaven. Revelation tells us about those signs. It says in chapter 6, verses 12 through, it says, And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth. Even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. So I believe that's the fulfillment of all the way back on day 4 when God created the lesser light, the greater light, and the stars also. And he said, the first thing he said is there are going to be 4 signs. So that tells me that there's been a plan all the way from the beginning. God, before the foundations of the earth, had the plan of salvation already laid out and nailed down. Nothing surprised him, and this is just the fulfillment of what he told us about all the way back in the book of Genesis. So here's another thing. Some people would say, well, if the sun wasn't yet created for the first few days, then how did we have time? Well, the answer to that is the sun doesn't give us time. If you remember the last time we talked, now it's been a couple months, you may not quite remember that. But we talked about what time was. Time is not a tangible object. It's not a thing that can be manipulated. Time is basically the way we keep track of events that progress from the past to the present and through the future. So God is already telling us before the sun is there that there's evening and morning, evening and morning, evening and morning, first day, second day, third day, and now the fourth day. So then what's the purpose of the sun if it's not what gives us time? It's actually like what people wear on their wrist. It's like a watch. The watch doesn't make time. The watch helps us to keep track of time so we know what time of day it is. The sun, if we look up and the sun's high in the sky, what time is it? It's not midnight, right? It's noontime. It's breakfast, yeah. For pastors, it's breakfast time. If it's low on the east horizon, we know it's morning. If it's low on the west horizon, then we know it's evening time. Or if you're on either pole, depending if it's summer or winter, you may see the sun more or less than the rest of us. But it's just remember, the sun does not create or make time. It's basically our watch so we can look and see what time it is. All right, here comes the fifth day. Genesis 1:20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So I do have some of those little things that we see here, some octopi and some whales and sharks and squid and all kind of fun stuff. And we got our little fish tank with fish and some other creatures floating around in there. They're not real. Well, I mean, you can touch them, so they're real, but they're not alive. I guess we'll say that. All right. So Genesis 1:20, it says, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So fowls are going to fly in the open firmament of heaven. So we're going to hear more about this later, so I want you to keep that in your mind. The sixth day. Genesis 1:24 says, and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life. I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So the sixth day was a very busy day. There's a lot going on. God created all these land animals over here. And you just think about how many different land animals there are. And it also says that he created mankind. That's when man, Adam and Eve, were created. That's pretty amazing stuff that God could do all that in just one day. But what I want to think about is this. Psalm 8:3 says, when I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. Thou hast put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, yea, and all the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passeth through the paths of the sea. O Lord our God, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. Have you ever just sat there and considered, you just look out at all the wonders that God has created and wonder why God would love us? Well, let's put that into perspective. In the grand scheme of things, we humans are insignificant as pertaining to quantity. In other words, how many of us there are. Here's what I mean. There are an estimated 20 quintillion animals on the planet right now. That means everyone on earth could have 2.5 billion pets each. How many of y'all would like that? Not me. I've seen some cat ladies that probably got close, but not quite. Wow, that is a staggering thought to think. And when we consider this and the vastness of space, we truly must ask, what is man that God would even be mindful of us? Thankfully, God is not only mindful of us, but he sent his son to die for us. He didn't die for any animals or angels or the vast solar system, but he died for us. This is a very humbling thought. We must thank God for his kindness toward us. When we look around and we see all that God has done and all the beautiful things, what an amazing thing that he would love someone like us. And on an individual basis, we know how we are. We know our own flaws and failures and all the different ways that we disappoint ourselves and our parents and God. But God still loves us. To me, It's unfathomable, but it's amazing and wonderful that he does. All right. Now, here we've got probably the fanciest box we've ever had up here, but we're not going to open it quite yet because what's in there may attack somebody. It really might. I hope it doesn't. But I told you we would come back to this. Genesis 1:20. And fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Genesis 1:8 says, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Genesis 1:20, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. You say, well, what's this about? Well, this is what this is about. You know, our King James Bible has a built-in dictionary. So if we ever want to know what one word means, all we have to do is follow that word through Scripture and see how God defines it, and then we can understand exactly what it means. So in this life, there are people that are going to try to deceive us or try to persuade us of different things, and it's pretty interesting here. See the word firmament in Genesis 1:18 says, and God called the firmament. He called it something. Now, some people would say firmament means a hard thing, like it's firm. But let's let God define what firmament is. He said it is heaven. Firmament is heaven. Okay, so let's further define what does that mean. Verse 20 says, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So it's above the earth, it's open, and it's the firmament of heaven. So what we're breathing, that's firmament. That's the open heaven. So the Bible tells us that birds are going to fly in the open firmament of heaven. Now, we don't need this. I believe that anyways, but how many of you ever seen a bird fly in the open firmament of heaven? Right? We could be blind and someone could read this verse to us and we could believe it, right? But we've all seen it happen. So obviously a firmament isn't some hard piece of glass or crystal or nothing. It's just, it's air. It's heaven, right? So, that being said, let's see if we fed this guy here today. Oh boy. Things get wild sometimes around here. Let's see. See, it's flying in the firmament of heaven. Isn't that pretty cool? And that is just a very simple picture of what God has made. And isn't God's creation so much more wonderful than anything man could make? Thank you for coming. And remember, look out tonight, tomorrow. Check out the stars. Check out your animals. And say, thank you, God, for giving us all this beautiful stuff.